So what happens if you want to run an off-grid business? What do I mean by off-grid business? I guess what I mean by off-grid business is a business that's not registered. It doesn't have a business license. It's not collecting sales taxes. It's not remitting sales taxes. It's not filing income taxes and things like that. So can that be done? Yes, probably. I'm sure there are businesses that do that. Do I recommend that? Of course not. As a business consultant, I think that would be irresponsible of me to recommend that. My general approach is to play by the rules and set up those things properly, but at the same time, take advantage of everything you can, like all the business expenses, GST input tax credits, and things like that as well. So what happens if your business is kind of off-grid and unregistered? Well, for starters, if it's not registered, meaning you haven't registered the business name or incorporated, then at least where I live here in Saskatchewan in Canada, there can be penalties for advertising or marketing your business under a business name that you haven't actually registered. So could be penalties for that. Also, what happens if someone else already has that business name that you're identifying under? They can potentially take legal action because you're using a business name that they have registered. Now, what happens if you don't actually get a business license in your municipality? Well, the same thing. You might not get caught, but if you do, there can be penalties, significant fines for operating a business without a business license. And of course, that can vary from municipality to municipality. Now, what happens if you're not collecting the appropriate sales tax and remitting it? The same thing. There can be fines, there can be penalties, there can be interest on amount owing. So it can end up just being a big fine. And what happens if you're just collecting cash and you're not claiming your business revenue and expenses on your income tax? Well, again, there can be penalties for that. And also that can end up hurting you, because what happens if you're wanting to, take out a loan to purchase a vehicle or to get a mortgage? Well, the lenders are going to look at your income tax, your bank statements, your income. And so if you're not reporting any of those things, they don't have much to look at. So it might become really difficult for you to ever get a loan. So if you're never going to need a loan through a conventional lender, then maybe this is okay. But if you're ever going to a bank for a loan or a mortgage broker, it's going to be really tough to do if you're not filing your taxes and record keeping and having transactions actually flow through a bank account. What happens if you're paying employees and you don't have them set up on payroll and you're not collecting payroll deductions? Same thing. There can be penalties there, big financial penalties, where not only will you have to pay forward those deductions that you should have claimed, but there could on top of that be interest owing and a penalty for not doing it properly. And now what happens if you don't sign up for workers' compensation? Same thing, there can be penalties there, there can be fines. Plus, what happens if one of your employees or independent subcontractors gets hurt at your place of work? There can be penalties for that too. And then what insurance is in place to help them out if they're missing work or they need rehab or whatever it may be. So yes, I'm sure it's entirely possible to run kind of an off-grid business where you're really not reporting much or claiming much or collecting the right sales tax or things like that. I'm sure there are a lot of businesses that do that, at least to some extent, but again, I don't recommend that. It's best for yourself and pretty much everyone else if you do things legitimately and just get those things set up. And you might not get caught, but because there's so many different things at play here, maybe you get caught for one thing and that one thing leads to something else, and then it ends up being the case that you're just paying all these fines and penalties and just having to go back and start up the business properly from an administrative standpoint and sorting out all these issues with these different governing bodies. The nice thing is most of these things are free to set up or they're not that expensive. It's just a bit of a learning curve. And once you start doing that, you kind of just get in the habit of keeping track of your bookkeeping and filing your taxes and doing payroll and things like that. If you're not sure what you need set up for your business, feel free to reach out to myself, especially if you are in Canada and more specifically in Saskatchewan. I offer a free 1-hour initial consultation and I can help navigate all those different things that a business needs to set up and operate properly. So I will leave a link in the video description below to book an initial consultation with me. And if you got any value from the video, please click like and feel free to check out my YouTube channel here, where I currently have over 200 videos that cover business management and business startup topics.